For this video, the second in the series, I'm going to be using the mould I made in the last video to cast a simple plastic twitch bait, and also for my regular viewers, explain where the hell I've been for the last 6 months. Let's roll the film. To get started, I needed to dig out some hardware. I found some short lengths of stainless steel wire that I normally use for making the spikes on breakaway leads. The idea was to use this short length of wire to position the weights in the body. The weights themselves were just 2 M5 nuts. I had an idea of roughly where I wanted them to sit in the body, somewhere between the nose and the belly hook, but I really wanted to see what that looked like actually on a canister and get more of a feel for it that way. After a bit of messing around, I settled on about 16mm back from the nose as a starting point and made a note of it so I could make another bait if it actually swam. I needed to add that 16mm to the thickness of the mould at the nose, and because I'd added a 25mm pin to the nose when I was pouring the mould and finished pouring at the point on the end of the pin, I just added that 25mm to it. Then I marked the position on the rod. To attach my weights or nuts to the wire, I used some hot glue and pressed the wire into position, holding it until it cooled a little. Then I could open up the mould and use the pin or nail hole to locate the end of the wire, keeping the weights roughly over the seam in the mould, which was going to be the belly. I also laid the mould down to check that the wire was actually flush with the bottom, and then stood the mould up. To close the seam up and support the mould, I could then clip on my short piece of plastic mould box. To finish off the preparations, I fished out my little bottle cap with a hole in it that I'd used to make the mould. To cast the plastic body, I used some easiflow 60, a cheap and readily available polyurethane resin. This comes as a 2-part liquid that's mixed 1:1 by volume. I used plastic shot glasses and a level surface to fill the glasses about 2/3 full. I also filled another cup up to that level with glass bubbles. As the name suggests, these are tiny glass bubbles of air which give some buoyancy to the cured layer. To mix all three together, I started by tipping one part of the resin into a larger cup and then tipped in the glass bubbles. I gave this a bit of a mix until it started to look like a very thin custard. Then I could add the other resin and continue mixing, but now the clock is ticking and I have about 2.5 to 3 minutes to get it mixed and poured. So the mixing part needs to be limited to about a minute. But I need to go at a steady pace to avoid whipping air into that mix. Pouring is a pretty simple affair. I just used a thin stream down one side of the funnel, which left enough of the hole open to let the air out of the mould. If I'd have poured directly into that hole, there's a good chance I just would have trapped a lot of air into the mix. I brought the resin just over the top of the funnel and then added the bottle top to cap it off. Because the glass bubbles will rise slightly inside the resin before it cures, I laid the mould down on its seam so the lighter part of the resin would be above the weights, making the layer a bit more stable. After about 20 minutes, the resin left in the cup was hard enough to make it safe for me to demould the body. But the first job was actually to get the wire out, and gripping it with some pliers, I gave it a few turns to break the resin's grip on it. Then with a bit of a grunt, I pulled it out. From there I could just peel the silicone back and shimmy the body out. I used a craft knife to scrape off the flashing from around the seam and give it a bit of a tidy up. To cut the funnel off, which I didn't need, I just applied some pressure with the knife at the thinnest part of the body as I rotated it. After a few turns round, I managed to snap the funnel off, leaving me a clean body. I nipped that little bit of flashing off the nose with a pin-headed beam and flattened off the back with some 320 grit paper before taking off the sharp edge to leave me a slightly domed rear. For the hardware, I went for the simple but proven stainless steel screw eyes as hook hangers and a hitch point. The hooks were size 1 VMC trebles, which I normally use for pike fishing, and I paired these up with some stainless steel split rings. I only needed to drill out one hole in the body for the belly hook, and as I could just see the weights through the resin, I made a mark a few millimetres back. Then I used a 1mm drill that was thinner than the shank of the screw eye, so the threads would get some hold in the plastic. To actually make the hole, I used a pin vise drill, but a cordless drill will do the same. I screwed the hitch point in first, down the hole left by the wire, which again acted as a pilot hole. After a few turns, I switched to a set of pliers to make the job a little easier. As I was making a twitch bait, I left the eye horizontal to the body, hoping it would give me some more side to side movement. Then I could repeat this for the belly hook and the rear hook hanger. At this stage, although the resin's hard, it's not completely cured, so it'll have some grip on the thread as it hardens up over the next day or so. But even at this stage, a fish would need a workshop and some tools to get them out. But that was the lure finished. Well, without its finishes. I didn't really want to add any paint to this to kind of hide that bright white, so I could see it actually in the water. I'm not going to pretend that this is anything other than a very basic lure. You twitch it and basically it twitches from side to side, probably about a foot under the water. But it does share some features that are common to most hard baits, which is weights, a buoyant waterproof body and somewhere to attach the hooks and line. But changing any of them elements can really change the way the bait behaves. And when you get down to adding things like props and bills and in my case some junk found in a dumpster, the kind of possibilities become pretty endless. And that's really what I want to look at in the next video, taking this little blob of plastic and just messing around with it to see how many different types of baits I can get from that one mould. But before I go, I wanted to say thanks to everybody who sent their well wishes in the comments for the last video. I was kind of, if I'm being honest, a bit taken aback and obviously pleased, but a bit humbled by it all, to be honest. I took a bit of a break about 6 months ago from posting YouTube videos, and I think at the time I was pretty much certain that I wasn't ever going to come back to it. It might sound like an odd reason, but I felt like I'd failed. The channel just wasn't really going anywhere or growing, or it didn't appear to be. And it was hard to see to put the effort in, and also I kind of got myself into a mindset that every video had to kind of push the bounds further and I had to do something more, I don't know, spectacular or different to try and chase figures, to try and chase ratings, and it got kind of a bit painful to think about it, to be honest. So I went out and got a proper job at a fishing rod company based here in Liverpool of all places, and they make rods from basically the carbon upwards. I made a film about the place, Harrison Advanced Rods, about 2 or 3 years ago. I didn't really apply for a job, I just wrote to the boss there and said, I'm broke, can I have a job? And I think that the email was 2 sentences long, and surprisingly he said yeah, and I went down and spoke to him and we sorted something out. So I've kind of started 6 months ago as the oldest rod building apprentice that there is, and I've been learning how to finish rods and doing some filming for them as well, making some little promotional videos, fixing some things. I have broken a few things as well, kind of messing with machines, and swimming in the docks down there at lunchtime with a couple of the other freaks who work there, which has been great. And really after a few months I kind of started thinking about making videos again, but wasn't sure what to go back to doing. And I started to think really about why I started making these videos in the first place, which at the time I started making them, I was living in some tiny little island in the middle of Scotland. But I was living up there and I was making fishing tackle and fishing it and using it.
And I just really enjoyed that whole experience of being able to make something and get your backside out and go and catch dinner. And I think when you enjoy something, I always get that feeling that you want to share it with somebody, because you don't want to be the only weird guy dancing in a field. You want other people to get excited about it. So I thought, if I'm going to make YouTube videos again, it's got to be getting back to what I enjoy about it, which is messing around making fishing lures. And you know, they mightn't always be the greatest, they mightn't be the most beautiful things to look at, but just the enjoyment of that kind of process, and sharing that with other people and seeing, you know, what other people take from that and create themselves from these ideas. So that's really the plan, make what I want until Rapala come along and offer me a job, which is not really likely, but you never know, you never know. Oddly enough, now I work as like a very junior member of the kind of fishing industry. I don't actually get that much time to fish myself these days, and with making these videos kind of limited again. But last night I booked some tickets to go to Ireland at the end of this month to see Maciek of Mel Lures, who I made a film with 2 or 3 years ago and last year, and test out some of these baits I've made and see if they're really worth the plastic I've been messing around with. But again, thanks for the comments, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.